The wind howled like a living thing across the frozen plains of Vareth Prime. Snow swirled in furious patterns, driven by gusts that cut across the barren landscape. Eli Ward hunched against the storm, dragging a broken metal crate through knee-deep snow. His human suit was scratched and torn from the crash, but it still offered a little warmth, enough to keep him moving. Every step was a struggle. The cold sank into his bones as if it were trying to claim him. Eli had been stranded on this planet for days. The crash of his small exploration ship had left him with nothing but a few scattered supplies, a barely functional oxygen pack, and the wreckage of the pod he now used as shelter. He cursed softly, his breath steaming in the icy air. "Come on, just a little farther," he muttered to himself, eyes scanning for anything useful. Then he saw her. A figure stumbling through the snow, silver skin glinting faintly even in the dim light of the storm. She was tall, far taller than any human, with glowing blue eyes that reflected the chaos around her. She moved with a strange elegance, but her steps faltered, and she collapsed into the snow. Eli froze for a second, assessing her. This was no ordinary creature. She was clearly intelligent, and she needed help. He hurried forward, his instincts overriding any fear. He wrapped his arms under her and lifted her, careful to support her weight. "Hey, hold still," he said. His voice was rough from the cold, but firm. She groaned softly, blinking up at him with eyes that shimmered like distant stars. "Get off," she said weakly, her voice melodic but strained. I don't need help." Eli shook his head. "Yeah, you do. Trust me." Her blue eyes narrowed. She tried to pull away, but her body was too weak to resist. "Human, I can survive." Eli smiled faintly, ignoring her words. "We'll see about that. Just a few steps, okay?" He carried her across the snow to his makeshift shelter. It was little more than a crushed pod from the shipwreck, patched with scraps of metal and fabric. Inside, the air was slightly warmer, though the cold still crept along the floor. He set her down on a pile of blankets he had scavenged. The alien woman looked around, her expression sharp with suspicion. You're human?" she asked, voice trembling. Why are you helping me?" Eli shrugged. "Doesn't matter. You're alive and I'm alive. We help each other." She stared at him, her glowing eyes suspicious but curious. "Humans, fragile. You risk yourself. Not fragile enough to leave someone dying in the snow," he replied simply. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't respond, but she didn't argue either. Her body shivered violently, and Eli moved closer, adjusting the blankets around her. He noticed her skin, silver, almost metallic, and her fur-lined clothing torn and wet from the snow. She was barely surviving. Hours passed. Outside, the storm raged, battering the pod with icy fingers. Inside, the two of them huddled together under blankets. Kareth, as he learned her name, refused to move closer than necessary at first. She muttered cold insults, calling him clumsy and slow, but Eli ignored them. He had learned long ago that survival sometimes required patience, and humans were good at patience. Night fell, and the temperature dropped further. The heater in the pod had long since failed, and frost began to form on the walls. Kareth's shivering grew worse. Her breathing became shallow, and Eli realized her alien physiology could not handle this level of cold for much longer. He looked at her, concern tightening in his chest.
"Kareth."
"You're going to freeze if we don't do something." She glared at him, teeth bared slightly. "I don't need you to help me. Like that." Eli shook his head. "I know, but we're going to survive. Together. That's the only way." The alien blinked, her pride battling her survival instincts. Her blue eyes flashed with indignation, but her body betrayed her. She was too cold, too exhausted. After a tense moment, she sighed sharply and muttered, "Shut up, human. We're freezing. Get in my bed now." Eli's eyes widened. He froze. For a moment, he wondered if he had heard correctly. Then he noticed her trembling violently, her voice desperate. It wasn't a command of flirtation, it was a desperate order to survive. He didn't hesitate. He climbed onto the makeshift bed beside her, careful to give her as much warmth as possible while still keeping himself safe. The blankets wrapped around both of them, and slowly, heat began to flow from one body to the other. Kareth's shivering gradually lessened, and her tense muscles relaxed slightly. "You're strange, human," she muttered, voice muffled against the blankets. You don't fear me?" Eli smiled faintly. "Why should I fear someone who's trying to survive same as me?" For a long while they lay in silence. Outside, the storm howled, but inside, a small bubble of warmth and safety held them. Kareth shifted occasionally, muttering complaints, but Eli could hear gratitude in her tone. Her pride was intact, even as her body depended on him for survival. Finally, the exhaustion overcame her, and she drifted into a fitful sleep. Eli watched her quietly, thinking about how strange this universe could be. Here was an alien, exiled from her people, relying on a human she barely trusted, and yet something in this fragile alliance felt right. He thought about his own journey, the crash, the isolation, the constant struggle to survive. Somehow helping Kareth, being there for her, made the cold and the fear easier to bear. He realized that humans had a resilience that even the most powerful alien species sometimes underestimated. Morning came slowly. The storm had eased, leaving a soft layer of frost over everything outside. Kareth stirred first, blinking her glowing blue eyes as she assessed the room. She noticed Eli still watching her, eyes careful, protective. "You stayed," she said softly, almost to herself. "You didn't leave." Eli shrugged, smiling faintly. "Not when someone needs help." She looked away, a faint blush, or whatever the alien equivalent was, coloring her silver cheeks. She muttered something unintelligible and focused on the blankets. For the first time, she allowed herself to lean slightly against him, accepting his warmth as more than a necessity. "Humans," she whispered. "Perhaps not as fragile as they appear." Eli chuckled softly. "We're more stubborn than anything else, and we survive no matter what." Kareth studied him for a long moment, her glowing eyes searching. She could see the determination, the courage, and the odd kindness in this human who had risked everything to save her. For the first time since her exile, she felt, hours passed and the snow continued to fall outside, though now it was calmer. They scavenged together, sharing the work of repairing the pod and searching for food. Kareth's pride sometimes caused friction. She would refuse to let Eli carry heavy supplies or make decisions, but slowly, she began to accept that he was more capable than she had imagined. As the day wore on, they talked more openly. Kareth revealed fragments of her past, her exile, the strict laws of her people, and her refusal to obey an order that would have harmed innocents. Eli listened without judgment, offering insights from human history and survival, stories of perseverance and second chances. By evening, they had built a small fire, a rare luxury on this frozen world. The warmth spread through the pod and both of them settled near it, exhausted but alive. The bond between human and alien had grown stronger, forged in shared hardship and mutual respect. Kareth looked at him quietly, a softness in her glowing eyes. "Perhaps survival is not just about strength, but about trust," she said. Eli nodded. "And sometimes trust is what makes us stronger than the cold or the storm or anything else out there." As the night deepened, the storm outside faded, leaving a quiet, snow-covered landscape. The two of them lay under blankets, bodies warm and hearts cautiously open. In the silence, the distant hum of a signal reached them, soft but insistent. A faint hope flickered on the horizon. Kareth's eyes met his, glowing faintly in the firelight. "You will not leave if this signal brings trouble?" she asked softly. Eli shook his head. "No, we face it together." For the first time since her exile, Kareth allowed herself a small, genuine smile. She didn't fully understand humans, and perhaps she never would, but she could see now that they were capable of courage, compassion, and endurance. The night stretched on, and the warmth between them remained. Outside, the frozen world waited, but inside, survival had created something new, an alliance, a friendship, and perhaps the beginnings of trust that could defy even the harshest cold. And somewhere deep within the quiet, shared heartbeat of survival, both human and alien realized that the fight to live was not something they had to face alone. The soft glow of the morning sun reflected off the endless fields of snow, but Eli and Kareth did not relax. The distant hum of a signal had grown stronger overnight. It was not just a random beacon. It was active, precise, and very much deliberate. Kareth's eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light of the pod, narrowed as she listened. "They are coming," she said, voice sharp but low. "Verathi enforcers. They have found my location." Eli leaned back against a patch of metal and snow block wall, studying her. "Enforcers? Like soldiers?" Kareth's shoulders tensed. "Yes, if they see me alive, they will take me back." "Punishment," Exile. Worse. I will not survive a second time. Eli nodded. He had faced desperate situations before, both in space and on distant planets, but this was different. He was facing an alien empire's enforcers to protect someone who was, in many ways, a stranger. Still, his mind was practical. Then we don't wait. We prepare. We use the pod, the wreckage, anything we can. We survive. She looked at him astonished. You are human. You will fight them? I'll do more than fight, Eli said, determination in his voice. I'll make sure they can't reach you. Kareth's lips pressed together. She wasn't used to being protected by a human. She was used to commanding, not being defended. And yet something in Eli's calm confidence stirred a strange feeling. Gratitude mixed with admiration. Together they set to work. The pod was fragile, but it had compartments and machinery that could be repurposed. They scavenged from the wreckage nearby, gathering metal sheets, wires, and pieces of insulation. Kareth used her strength to lift heavy beams that Eli could barely budge, while Eli used his technical knowledge to rig the pod into a defensive structure. Do you really think this will stop them? Kareth asked, skepticism in her tone. Eli smiled faintly. It might not stop them, but it will slow them down. And slowing them down gives us choices. They worked in silence for hours, their movements coordinated without words. Kareth began to see that human ingenuity was something to respect. The metal panels they mounted could divert energy pulses. Loose wires and debris were arranged to create hazards for anyone attempting to enter. It wasn't perfect, but it was clever, and it was theirs. When the sun was high in the sky, the distant hum of the approaching enforcers grew louder. They were coming down the valley like hunters, their sleek vehicles leaving narrow tracks in the snow. Kareth tensed, ready to strike, but Eli held her shoulder. Wait, he said. Watch first. Learn their pattern. Then we act. Kareth studied the humans, or rather the other humans she had once considered beneath notice. Their alien technology and discipline were frightening, but Eli had a plan. When the enforcers reached the perimeter, Eli triggered a series of small shocks from the pod's frozen engines. Sparks flew, snow exploded in geysers, and the first line of vehicles skidded uncontrollably. Kareth laughed softly, impressed. The human was clever, unpredictable, and unafraid. The enforcers regrouped quickly, moving cautiously toward the pod. Kareth stepped forward, her glowing eyes fixed on them, but Eli put a hand on her arm. Let me handle this part, he said. Stay behind me, use your strength only if necessary. She hesitated, unused to this, but she trusted him. Eli raised a small device he had rigged to the pod's energy source. He activated it, sending a pulse that caused the snow around them to swirl violently, blinding and confusing the enforcers. Metal debris spun in arcs, creating obstacles. The humans, or rather alien soldiers, paused, unsure how to proceed. Kareth could not help but feel a surge of respect. You are extraordinary human, she murmured. Eli smirked, keeping his focus. I've had practice. The enforcers attempted to flank the pod, but Eli had anticipated it. Using levers, pulleys, and makeshift traps, he created narrow channels that forced them into slow, exposed positions. Kareth joined when necessary, using her strength to push debris into their path. She moved like a force of nature, her body striking with precision. Together, human and alien became a single coordinated defense. Hours passed, and finally the enforcers retreated, frustrated by the pod's defenses and Eli's ingenuity. Kareth stood beside him, breathing hard but smiling faintly. I thought no one could protect me, she admitted. I underestimated humans, Eli shrugged. We survive because we care, not because we are invincible. The storm outside had passed, leaving a calm, crisp world of white. The pod, battered but intact, stood as proof of their teamwork. Kareth looked at Eli differently now. There was trust there, cautious but real, something she had not felt in a long time. I should leave, she said softly, almost to herself. Return to the stars, or they will find me again. Eli shook his head. No, not yet. Not when we've just survived this together. You're not alone anymore. Kareth studied him, her glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of wonder and disbelief. You will come with me? I'll stay until it's safe, he replied. Then we decide together. The alien queen, exiled though she was, found herself smiling for the first time in years. Not a smile of victory, but of relief, of trust, of something human and fragile yet unbreakable. Hope. Over the following days, they prepared for departure. Eli helped Kareth repair a small transport vessel from the wreckage, ensuring it was ready to survive the harsh cold. Kareth taught him how to use some of her species' technology, and in turn he shared human techniques of adaptation and survival. They became a team, a partnership forged in fire and ice. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the snowfields, Kareth approached Eli. Her silver skin glimmered in the moonlight, and she spoke softly, almost shyly. "You saved me," she said. "More than once. I owe you more than I can express." Eli smiled. "You owe me nothing. Survival is reward enough." She studied him for a long moment, then smirked faintly. "Do not think this makes you safe. I might still order you into my bed again, human." Eli chuckled, shaking his head. "I'll take my chances." They laughed softly, the sound echoing across the frozen plains. For the first time since her exile, Kareth felt that she could trust another being completely. She realized that humans, with all their flaws, had something remarkable: courage, empathy, and the ability to rise when it mattered most. The next morning, they prepared to leave Verith Prime. The transport vessel hummed softly as systems came online. Eli checked the instruments carefully, ensuring they could escape without incident. Kareth observed him, impressed by his attention to detail and his quiet determination. As they lifted off, the frozen world shrinking beneath them, Kareth placed a hand on the console. "Perhaps exile is not the end," she said softly. "Perhaps it is a beginning." Eli glanced at her, smiling faintly. Every ending is a chance for a new story, and sometimes the best stories are written together. She looked at him, her glowing eyes full of trust and something else she did not yet name. For the first time in her life, Kareth realized that she had found a companion, someone who understood survival not as dominance or power, but as courage, ingenuity, and shared warmth. The stars stretched out before them, endless and full of possibilities. Together, human and alien traveled into the unknown, their bond strengthened by hardship, their spirits lifted by trust, and their hearts quietly intertwined in a way that neither expected but both understood. Eli glanced at her, teasing lightly. "Just remember, if we ever face another storm like that, I might still protest before getting into bed." Kareth laughed softly, shaking her head. "No promises, human, but I think I like having you by my side." And so they journeyed onward, two survivors from different worlds, united by courage, trust, and the simple, undeniable truth that sometimes survival was more than staying alive. It was finding connection. Even in the coldest corners of the universe, the frozen world faded behind them, but the warmth they shared would last forever, a testament to the strength of human spirit and the unexpected power of alliance.